Right. So I've started recording now, and I say to you hello.
Hello.
Can you please tell me your degree of familiarity with my typing sessions and the approach that I use in typing people?
I have watched many of your sessions. Uh, I find your methods to be particularly fascinating. Like I would say, the decisiveness and the bluntness that come from you, I find enjoyable as a spectator.
Okay, cool. Um, do you see yourself mostly as a subject who acts in the world, an object, that is to say, somebody who is presented things that they then deliberate about or make decisions about, or an agent, somebody who observes and knows things about stuff?
Probably the last agent.
Okay. Can you tell me which was better for you, fifth grade or sixth grade?
No.
How about 11th grade or 12th grade?
uh, Probably 12th grade. I homeschooled during 11th grade, and then I went back to public school for 12th grade. So I think I had more fun, more.
Where did you learn more?
11th grade was very self-taught. Like it was very self-direction.
So by homeschool, you mean fuck around all day?
No, I did my work. I mean, I probably did it fast enough that I could fuck around all day. But
Okay, so you have actual work you had to do.
yeah, I'd had actual work I had to do.
Because, I've heard stories about some people whose parents homeschooled them and they basically didn't have to do anything. Anyway, that's notwithstanding the point of this conversation. So let's go to back to this question of your memories. So, do you remember uh, a, a particular assembly from 12th grade?
Um, I remember. I think that was a year that my high school had done this weird thing where they didn't have us do actual classes, but they had us do more like it was kind of like a vocation program for like 2 weeks. It's kind of weird.
Okay.
Aside from that, I don't remember too much about it.
So, I want to talk to you a little bit about visualization, something you mentioned in the email about that if you close your eyes and try to sort of make an image appear in your imagination, that this is a challenge for you. Is that right?
It's not a challenge. It's just not possible from my experience.
Okay. So, do you dream?
Occasionally, probably a couple times a year. Uh, the research I've done into it is that dreaming is involuntary visualization, whereas if you try to daydream, like you try to visualize in your mind while you're conscious, it's your mind trying to actually be active about it.
Well, it's an interesting subject to me because I've long said that I'm somebody who is more or less unable to visualize anything.
Mhm.
And I remember when I was a kid, my mother said, the nice thing about reading books is that it's like watching a movie in your head. And I said, it's not like that for me. But the thing is, as I've grown older, I've come to recognize some of what I would consider imagination to have behind it images that I'm not really exactly. I couldn't draw you a picture of them exactly, but there's a form to it anyway. Do you have that?
Are you talking? You see like outlines, like rough outlines?
Yeah, like or icons representing things sometimes.
When I close my eyes, I just see the back of my eyelids. So usually it's black, but if I'm looking at a bright light, it'll turn orange.
Okay. But if you close your eyes and you say to yourself, I want to imagine what a tree looks like.
It's still just black for me.
Okay. Interesting. All right. Can you tell me what you had for breakfast?
I didn't eat breakfast.
Is
I mean, I
that
guess I had a Red Bull, but I don't count that as breakfast.
it's more breakfast than nothing, I suppose. Uh, did you have lunch?
I did
What'd you have for lunch?
some shitty Chinese food from the grocery store.
I see. And what about dinner? Is it dinner time yet wherever you are?
It's just after 4 p.m.
You're in the same time zone as me.
Yeah.
If you were in Hawaii time zone, it would be 11 in the morning. Okay. So, do you procrastinate?
Yes.
Do you... Okay. So, let's talk about this appointment that we had today. Did you say to yourself on several occasions during the day, don't forget you got that thing at 4 o'clock?
No, I put a notification in my phone to remind me.
Okay. And do you rely on that notification to actually remind you? Like, in fact, if that notification hadn't gone off, would you have forgotten about it?
No, I wouldn't have forgotten. It was already in the back of my mind. I also find that just like writing it down will help me remember, regardless of if I have a notification or not.
Right. Okay. Um, let's say you've got something coming up in a couple of weeks. Let's say you've got a dentist appointment on the 19th. Okay. Now, you're going to put that in your calendar. Fine. So you'll get your Google reminder or whatever. But in between now and the 19th, are you going to once a day, let's say, remind yourself that I got the shit coming up on the 19th?
Uh, Probably not once a day. I'll probably remember about it every 3 or 4 days.
Okay. Do you have any creative hobbies?
I actually, my undergraduate degree was music.
Okay.
So I'm a classically trained trumpet player, and I've been trying to work more so on getting into like writing music that's not like more like just using MIDI keyboard on a program kind of stuff. And then sandbox games are fun, like video games, where you get to be creative.
When you play the trumpet, does it sound like this?
I hope not.
That's my imitation of the trumpet. Okay. Classically trained trumpet. So you play classical music trumpet, or
uh, Trumpet solo repertoire, wind band, orchestra, that kind of stuff.
I see. I normally think of trumpet as being a jazz instrument.
Oh, it's definitely very much so a jazz instrument as well.
Okay.
I just
So when you say you want to make music with MIDI keyboards and stuff like that, you mean you want to make pop music or what?
no, I don't want to write pop music.
Okay. What kind of music do you want to make?
I would prefer. I really want to just mess around with a lot of different coloring in chords and stuff.
Like soundscapes, cinematic shit, or what?
Something along those lines, but not exactly that.
Okay. Um, what kind of media do you consume that's not music?
Uh, that's not music. Usually, I'll read articles and books, and I'll watch like YouTube and stuff.
Do you watch shows that are scripted to entertain, such as dramas, sitcoms, action stuff, action movies, or stuff like that?
Occasionally, yeah.
Okay, can you tell me about examples of those kinds of media that you think are good and examples you thought were bad?
Um, are you trying to ask like what genres I enjoy, or
Well,
just
let's say you enjoy action movies. And then I would like you to give me an example of a good one and a bad one. The ones
okay?
that I
Well,
might know.
I would say if we let's just look at the MCU for a second. My favorite movie from that universe is definitely Infinity War. I think it has the best narrative, best pacing. The protagonist is the villain. I think that makes a compelling and interesting story.
You know what's funny is I never saw any of those MCU movies. The first one I ever saw was Infinity War. And I was
Hmm.
just like, oh my God, this is the greatest movie I've ever seen. And then, like, I still to this day think of all the ones I've seen since. And maybe my absolute favorite is Thor Ragnarok.
That one's good for comedy and just general entertainment, I would say. Yeah.
Well, it gets bonus points for being the having the single best use of a Led Zeppelin song ever.
Yeah.
It's like it's perfect. Anyway, okay, so you've got good taste in MCU movies. That doesn't tell me much. Let's see. What's your worst MCU movie?
The worst one, probably Thor: The Dark World.
I'm not sure I saw that one.
It's the most forgettable one.
Okay. Um, if you were to write a superhero screenplay, what superpowers would you like them to have, and why? And like, what would you have them do and stuff?
I'd probably want to write an anti-hero, honestly.
So it's somebody who's just a dick.
Uh, Somebody that's maybe like they're not bad, but they're not good. They're maybe a little morally ambiguous, and you can grow them as a character instead of just them being about justice and rightness all the time.
Hmm. Do you think that people in real life grow?
I hope so.
In what areas do you think people grow? And in what areas do you think people are inherently who they are, unable to change?
I think people. Okay, well let's go back for a second. I think people who want to grow will find a way to make themselves better, and some people are content with just sticking with how they are, not trying to grow. So I don't think everybody grows as a person necessarily. I think they can. I think everybody has the potential to.
You didn't include an assessment for the subpopulation of people who wish to shrink.
Sorry, say again.
Said you didn't include an assessment for the subpopulation of people who wish to shrink. You said people who want to grow and people who don't want to grow, but you didn't include the people who want to shrink.
Oh, you think some people want to be worse?
I don't know. Do you think maybe have their world smaller?
I think maybe world smaller, like they just want to continue living in their hometown. Like they say they move away to college and then go back home. Is that what you mean by shrink?
Or
Just
maybe
not
just
making
just
connections?
simplify things, right? Like um, reduce the amount of novelty and or
So just living in their comfort zone too much.
I mean, is that a bad thing inherently?
If I mean it's hard to push yourself to be better if you're all constantly living in your comfort zone, I would say.
Okay, but what if you are somebody who's not sufficiently within their comfort zone? Then in that instance, wouldn't it be progress to shrink?
I feel like it would stay stagnant.
Well, I mean, certainly a certain amount of comfort zone has to be sustained, right? Like, you can't be constantly skydiving. Sometimes you have to sit down and eat lunch.
Yeah.
So, what I'm saying is it progress for some people to shrink their lives?
If they're viewing it that way, it can be, yeah, because that might be the life that they want to live.
Okay. So how does a person know whether they're growing or regressing or being static?
They have to introspect.
Okay, can you walk me through that process?
Uh, they have to look within, decide what they actually want for themselves, see if they're making that progress as a person. Like, are they reaching the goals they want to reach? Are they living the modest life they want to live? Uh, and then they have to check that with what they actually do, what they're actually doing, and see how it aligns.
Okay. Let's say that life has you've determined that you have room in your life for one new friend, and there are two applicants for the position. Which is to say, there are two people trying to be your friend, and contacting you like, "Hey, let's go to the local museum. Let's go have activities together." And you only have time for one of them. You have to choose one friend and exclude the other. Is that a difficult decision for you, or is it pretty obvious which one you like better?
It's probably going to be pretty obvious which one I like better.
Okay. Um, can you describe for me a minor problem, a minor persistent problem that you have going on in your life? For example, I've this is an SI one for me. It doesn't have to be SI, but for example, I've got el bol del teniso, as they say in Spanish. Got a little bit of the old tennis elbow. It's a
Mm-hmm.
minor persistent problem that's been bothering me. But I could come up with a non-SI one too. But whatever, something equivalent of equivalent scope. Can you articulate one for me?
Uh, the most obvious one, I'm looking at it right now, is just needing to clean my apartment. I just keep looking at it and pushing it off because I just come home from work and I don't want to do it. I just want to relax after a day of work.
Do you find work tiring?
Yes.
Okay. Um, is it because it requires you to check too many boxes slash execute too many mias, or is it because you have to talk to too many people, or something else?
Usually just sometimes, depending on how long the day is, physical demands and talking to too many people, usually.
Okay. Would you rather be expected to listen to somebody yammer at you for 20 minutes, or be expected to blah 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 at somebody for 20 minutes?
Do I actually have to listen to them and like really retain what they say?
You have to show that you're listening, whether you actually are or not. You have to
Hmm.
nod and go like, You cannot actually be listening, but as long as they're not, you have to fool them.
I guess I would say it depends. If it's something that I can actually talk about for 20 minutes, I'll talk for 20 minutes. But otherwise, I would want to just listen.
If I said, "Oh my God, last minute, our weekly guest lecturer is canceled, but we've got the room's already sold out. Tickets, we got all these people. You come in, do a lecture on whatever topic you think you can lecture on the fly off, without much prep. Go ahead. What topic do you pick?"
Without that much prep, just anything.
Yeah, you've got an incredibly open-minded audience. They're ready to hear you give literally any lecture for 20 minutes.
Hmm. I don't know. The hard part is 20 minutes seems very short, but when you have to just be that one person talking for 20 minutes, it's a long time. So you have to have enough information. That's the hard part.
Well, that's why I'm letting you choose what the topic is.
You're not going to make me talk for 20 minutes now, are you?
No.
uh, I don't know. I might just Honestly, probably it's just a very niche like trumpet thing that I went through, but the warm up routine for my undergrad,
Okay.
I could talk about that for 20 minutes because I can also model for 20 minutes doing it.
Okay. Um, just off the cuff, can you tell me a story about a rabbit who develops the power of mind control and who speaks English?
And he speaks English.
Yeah, so just, in other words, he got the power of speaking English. So he just is like a fully he can have conversations with you or whatever. But then he got the power of mind control. Now tell me about his story. Just go.
Uh, I want to name him, but that's hard. I'm bad with coming up with names for anything. Let's see. I just want to give like a very just bland story because I'm not gonna be able to do anything otherwise. There was this lonely rabbit wandering through the forest, and he stumbled upon a castle. He hopped up to the castle, and in this castle, he found a cauldron. The rabbit drank from the cauldron and was suddenly granted the English language miraculously. The rabbit spoke to himself and said, "Wow," and he was stunned. He had never heard such words come from his mouth. So now the rabbit strolls back to the town, and in the town, he meets a witch. The witch now grants him mind control, and with these newfound powers, he starts speaking thoughts in people's heads, acting as if he's God.
Where in the town did he meet the witch?
Uh, would you say by a fountain?
Is the fountain round or square?
Round.
Does it shoot water up in the air a high amount or just a little bit?
Unknown amount. I don't know.
Okay, so what made you answer the question round instead of square?
Whenever I think of a fountain, I usually think of a round fountain.
Okay. So, okay.
I haven't seen many square fountains before.
All right. Can you tell me as many synonyms as you can think of for the word jovial?
Jovial? Well, first off, my vocabulary is not super great.
I'll give you a different word.
Right.
Synonyms for the word. For the word dismayed.
Dismayed. Upset. Discomforted, I guess could be one. Unhappy.
It's actually discomfit, by the way.
Discomfit.
Discomfited. It's not discomforted.
Okay.
It's one of those weird words. It's like bemused. It doesn't mean amused.
Okay.
Anyway, go ahead. Sorry.
The original words dismayed. I guess you could probably go along the lines of, if I'm saying upset, you could probably say sad or Uh, you could even maybe say frustrated
Chagrined.
in a certain context.
Chagrined. What about chagrined?
Sure.
That's a good synonym for that one. All right, let's play Name My Invention. I have a new invention. It's one of those fake mustaches that you can put onto your face that has attached to it a GPS tracker that gives periodic updates about your latitude and longitude.
Is it giving it to you or someone else?
It's just announcing it out of a little speaker on the mustache. Like a clock chimes, right? But this thing does that.
Yeah. Track stash.
Okay. Anything else?
That's probably the best one I got, honestly.
Okay. What about must GPS stash? Okay. So what do you think I've concluded from these answers you've given me of the last sets of questions here?
Probably the Any's backstack for me.
Okay. Yeah. Let's ask you some TE questions. So, how do you... Okay, how do you clean the bathroom? What are things to consider before beginning cleaning the bathroom?
You need to make sure that you've got your cleaning supplies. So, shower cleaner, toilet bowl cleaner, scrubbers for it. If you like cleaning with gloves, get yourself some good gloves, some good vinyl gloves. All of your actual chemicals, you'll want those. Consider not mixing your chemicals because that could produce some harmful air pollutants.
Okay, now you've got all your stuff lined up. Now, what do you do first and why?
I mean, I'm probably going to clean the toilet bowl first because I think it's probably just the grossest one.
Okay. So, what do you clean after that?
The shower.
Okay. What do you clean after that?
The sink.
Okay. What do you clean after that?
Well, the sink and counters and counter spaces in the bathroom. So those are just kind of one, I would say. And then after that, I'd probably clean the floors.
Okay, if you had to give one rule of thumb for cleaning the bathroom, the whole world, you're going to tell the whole world, hey, everybody, whole world, remember, when you're cleaning the bathroom, don't forget this one rule. What's your one rule?
Probably just make sure everything's scrubbed well.
A good TE rule is clean top down. Right? You want to clean the floor last. You want to clean up high first because everything goes down.
Yeah.
Okay. What about using a knife? What's your one rule when we're using a knife?
Don't cut yourself.
That doesn't actually instruct people meaningfully on how to not cut themselves. It just says, like, I think the chance of somebody purposely cutting themselves is generally low. If you were trying to advise them in knife safety, besides just saying don't cut yourself, what piece of advice would you have for them?
I would actually tell somebody make sure that your knife is well sharpened. because if you do accidentally cut yourself, it will do less damage to you.
Okay. How about what makes you more angry at yourself? If you stub your toe, or if you say something at a party that somebody perceived as rude.
I might not know if somebody perceived it as rude right away. Probably that, though.
Okay. What makes you more angry at yourself? If you forget something at home that you needed to bring with you, or if you stub your toe?
If I forget to bring something from home.
Okay. What makes you more angry at yourself? If you get fooled by a trick question, like I go, who's buried in Grant's tomb? And you're like, I don't know. And I go, Grant, duh. You know, like that kind of circumstance. You get fooled by a trick question, or you accidentally hurt someone's feelings.
Getting fooled by a trick question.
Okay. What makes you madder at yourself, stubbing your toe, or getting fooled by a trick question?
Getting fooled by a trick question.
Okay. What how often do you fail to make appointments or miss deadlines or stuff like that?
If I don't write something down, I'm more likely to forget about it. But if I write it down, then I'm usually going to be pretty good about getting to it.
Okay. I pretend I don't understand the concept of a hater. I'm a kid, okay? I'm a kid. I've come home from school and said, hey, I explained to Jenny that her trapper keeper kind of looked dumb and clashed with her hat, and she said I was a hater, but I don't understand what that is. Can you explain it to me?
All right, Eric. So sometimes you're going to deal with people in life who are going to come to you and they're going to say they don't like certain things about you. And that's okay because they're just hating on you. They just don't appreciate what you're doing.
But I thought I was the hater.
Oh, you're the okay.
She accused me of being a hater. I just told her the
Sorry.
truth. Like, you shouldn't bring that trapper keeper when you're wearing that hat. They clash.
Well, okay. So sometimes
I don't think I'm a hater. I just think I'm a truth speaker.
not everybody's prepared for that.
But I don't know what a hater is. Someone explain it to me.
It's a person who is looking down on somebody for something that they've done.
So when I criticize Adolf Hitler, I'm a hater?
No.
Oh, I'm confused.
Okay, let's go back. They may not appreciate the accomplishments that you've made.
But I don't think it was an accomplishment for her to bring that trapper keeper. I thought it was a failure. I'm even more confused than before.
Just because you don't like what they're doing doesn't mean that they don't like what they're doing.
I didn't tell her how to feel about it. I just told her it looked dumb. So the bottom line is I'm trying to figure out, am I a hater or not?
I think at this point it's just conjecture from her.
Just conjecture, huh? Okay, well, so I mean, the key thing about a hater, right, is conceptually is that the person says that stuff's shitty because they're jealous in some way, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So can you come up with an example from your own life in which that's occurred? Either you doing it to somebody else doing it to you, or somebody else doing it to somebody else that you observed. Any of those three.
Just somebody being like jealous of something.
Like somebody going like, God, that band's so commercial, but it's really they're just jealous of them or something.
Mm. Not really. I just don't have much to pull from for that.
Okay. Can you come up with an example of somebody um, who you've observed be too nice? Like either maybe a waitress at a restaurant just overwhelming you with, well, I hope you're having a wonderful time today. Like that kind of shit. Or it could just be one of your friends maybe being a pushover, or somebody you know being a pushover and letting themselves get treated badly by somebody else. Can you give me an example of some instance of someone you've observed being too nice?
Uh, I mean, I've definitely seen this. It's just like nothing's sticking out to me at the moment.
Okay. Can you give an example of somebody you know or something in your own life of someone overcoming some adversity?
I mean, my mom went through hell trying to work full time and work through her master's degree. So I would say that's in the form of adversity. Also, while having many children at the same time that she had to deal with.
Many children?
Yeah.
Are you one of a dozen children?
I have 6 siblings.
Wow, that's a lot of children.
Mm-hmm.
7 kids in a family, huh?
Yep.
How did you like having so many siblings?
I mean, it was all right. I definitely appreciate them more now that I'm an adult and I don't have to be around them all the time. I can kind of talk to them less, like more so when I want to, rather than them being there in my space all the time.
Okay.
And a lot of my siblings were also very loud, and I didn't really enjoy that.
I see. So, did you not enjoy the loudness because the sensory aspect of it, the noise pollution aspect of it, or did you not like the loudness because it frequently attempted to require of you more extroversion than you wanted?
Both, but I would probably say more so the sensory part of it.
Okay. All right. Let me ask you some TI questions. If some chairs have feet and some things with feet are horses, can we conclude that some chairs are horses?
No.
Okay. Who is my grandmother, my maternal grandmother's, that's my mother's mother, who is my mother's husband's only daughter's husband in relation to me?
That would be your uncle, I'm pretty sure.
My dad.
Okay.
Okay. If only cigarettes cause healthy living, and all instances of healthy living are good, can we conclude that only cigarettes can cause good?
Can you repeat the first part of the statement?
If only cigarettes lead to healthy living, and all instances of healthy living are good, can we conclude that only cigarettes create good?
Yes.
I think the answer is actually no, but it's a trick question.
Mm.
So I know how you hate being tricked by trick questions.
It's really hard for me to like put these in my head. If I saw it in writing, it'd probably be much easier. Because when I did, I had a philosophy class in my undergrad. There was a logic portion within there, and I did really well on those. It's just I have to see it in writing for me to process it.
Sure. Okay. So I'm gonna ask Rachel to chat with you briefly. Ask you about hobbies, interests, whatever other kind of questions she wants to ask here for about 5 minutes while I go smoke a cigarette,
Okay.
muse a bit, and then I'm gonna come back and I'll chat with Rachel briefly, see what she thinks, and I'll tell you what I think you are. And we can go from there. Okay.
Okay.
Rachel, can you come take over for about 5 minutes?
Sure, hold on.
So what do you think is more important value for you for another person to uphold? Is it more important that they follow through on what they say they're going to do, or follow through on what they say they're not going to do? In other words, would you rather them fail to do what they promised to do, or do something they promised not to do? Whenever you're ready, Rachel.
Would I rather a person not do what they said they would do, or sorry?
So, you've got a circumstance where a person promises to do something, like I will bring home milk on the way home, fails to do so. You've got another situation where somebody says he won't do something. I won't buy my outfit for the dance until after you decide your outfit, but then they go ahead and they buy theirs first. Okay? So in the first circumstance, they fail to follow through on something they promised they were going to do. On the second circumstance, they do something they promised they weren't going to do. Which is worse?
Probably the second one.
Okay. Here you go, Rachel.
Hi, Matt.
Hi.
Okay, so, what are some of your interests?
Right now, I like playing video games. I like superhero stuff. I've been watching a lot of chess on YouTube again and playing chess, so that's an interest of mine. Music is obviously an interest. That was my undergrad degree, and I probably will never let that one go. It's just too much time invested, and it's a good hobby. I don't know, just generally researching whatever I might find interesting for however long I find it interesting.
So, how long ago did you start? Well, actually, at what age did you start becoming interested in music?
Like genuinely interested, not just doing it for classes in high school or middle school or whatever.
Yeah.
Probably like genuinely interested at around 16, 17.
And then, what sparked you to play?
Initially, like at first,
Yes.
I didn't want to take a typing class.
Oh, that's a good reason. um, let's see. What kind of video games are you interested in?
I like games that like kind of. I really like tactical shooters because there's an element of getting to impress people with your reflexes and aim and just your mechanics, and then there's also an element of strategy and understanding in those games. So you really have to learn how to kind of adjust to opponents and how they play. And then I also enjoy like sandbox kind of games where you get a little bit more freedom, but I don't enjoy necessarily as much open world, like RPG kind of things. There's just always so much to do in those, and it just seems a bit overwhelming.
Yeah, I don't play those kind of games either.
Ask him real quick what time he goes to. If he has a regular amount of sleep, how much sleep he needs a night?
If you get a regular amount of sleep, how much sleep do you get a night?
If I get a regular amount, usually 7-ish would be ideal, but I probably never actually get anywhere around that. It's pretty sporadic. I don't have a set bedtime. I just kind of get up whenever. Usually one of my cats will wake me up if they're hungry anyway, so, and then I'll just go back to sleep or whatever.
Okay, so it's a fairly leisurely schedule. So he gets the amount of sleep that he says is about 7 hours, but
Alright, cool. I'll take back this way.
Sure.
Okay, well, I have my typing of you, and I will say in advance that your 6 slot doesn't test as expected for this type, really. But besides that, you test as ISFP.
Yeah.
You seem clearly to be an FI Dom. And I'm not one who can really identify FI, but I could see the FI lines coming off of you right off the bat. And your TE seems 4th slot. You seem to be unipolar. And I would say your TI being where it is and how you describe it is consistent with 8th slot. And NI 3rd slot as an absolute value seems pretty clear. And I mean, the any polar by itself limits you to ISTP or ISFP, and I don't think you're an ISTP.
I don't either. I'd considered that type at one point, but I kind of, through my research and understanding of things, I've found a lot more alignment with the FITE axis, and for the perceiving functions, I really just couldn't figure it out. I think that I think there's a lot of reasons related to the visualization for that.
I forgot in my preface also to say, if you're like most ISFPs I type, you won't identify very much with SE tool. So most ISFPs don't because of the way SE is described and so forth. Mm-hmm. I would say that SE tool is at least in the ISFP, is really just about making sure you handle your business, that you don't miss appointments, that you don't forget what you need to remember, that that you that you're not subject to critique in that area to the extent that you can avoid it. So I've not found any ISFPs to really identify as go-getters in terms of executing plans or being super opportunistic or whatever. That doesn't seem to correlate with SE Tool and the ISFP very strongly.
What about the SI? Didn't you think it stood out to you as not testing where it normally would be?
Right. So I would expect you to be able to produce more examples on demand, although not to produce them when not demanded, right? So it's like typically 6 slot is something people can use as a subject. So even if you don't use it in your own life, if I say, hey, you have to provide examples of meh, then you'll provide examples of meh. So for ISFP, I would expect you to be able to produce examples of concepts to help explain them. You weren't able to do that on a few different examples, really. You did with your mom, but it was very broad.
Mm-hmm.
So that's inconsistent with 6 slot SI. But, but everything else says ISFP. So I don't typically rely on 6 slot. In other words, I rely on polar. If you test definitively polar, something I can narrow it down. I don't rely on 6 slot answers that much, but I would expect you to be able to demonstrate more SI.
Yeah, I think a lot of that is based on what I sent you.
Mm-hmm.
And then in addition to that, in addition to just not being able to visualize, there's more to aphantasia. It's also other senses that I'm blind to, at least like imaginary wise. I can feel them in real time, but like the other things that I just can't feel imaginary is like I can't I can't see in my mind. I can't imagine taste. I can't imagine touch. I can't imagine smell.
Well, I can't imagine taste, smell, or touch either, I don't think.
Yeah. It seems that a lot of people that I've talked to are able to.
Huh. Interesting. The thing is, I would ask you the question, how did you know the fountain was round?
Just haven't seen a lot of square fountains.
Right, but so it's like when you were telling that story, I had a very primitive image of where things were happening. So when you said that the rabbit went to a castle, well, then that for me set the timetable as like medieval fantasy knights and wizards time, right? So when you sent the rabbit back to the town to meet the witch, I was sort of imagining a like kind of an anime style Middle Ages looking house that the witch lived in. It's kind of like the one from the I've been killing slimes for 300 years anime. And I've maxed out all my I've been killing slimes for 300 years and I've maxed out all my stats. That's what it's called. Something like that. So the thing is, did you not have any image at all in mind of what sort of fountain it was?
No.
You didn't reference that when I asked you the question, what does it look like?
No.
Huh.
It's just, I don't know how to explain it. There's just no visualizations up there. My internal thought process is mostly inner monologue. And then there's also a level of just very unconscious thinking where this happens mostly when I play chess. But I just look at the board and I kind of... Are you familiar with candidate moves for chess?
No.
No, it's where you come up with your top best moves. And usually there's 2 to 4 top best moves. And then once you attain those, you start looking at the lines within those moves and you try to figure out which one will work the best for you. So you'll usually work through about 6 moves or so in each one and see like where's probably the best situation that I can end up in after this line is over. And then once you find the best one, you'll go and look through the best one even deeper than those moves. But a lot of that just happens very unconsciously for me. I just kind of understand the candidate moves without having to like think about it too much. It's just that's just pattern recognition.
I see. Of course, I'm not good at chess at all because I mean, I'm better than random scrub maybe, but not much. So the thing is, I can't. When you say see the lines in a chessboard, right? Like that particular kind of conscious intuition, it seems to be lacking in me. I don't visualize anything when I'm playing chess like that. I just say, well, let's see. If I move my horse there, then he'll get me with his guy there, and then I'll have to move back over there, and then I'll say, okay. So if I'm moving him over there, though, then I just do it like that.
I'm not visualizing it either. It's just an understanding.
Okay, so you're looking at the lines means, I'm not saying, I guess visualize is the wrong word. What I mean is to process visual data in real time.
Mm-hmm.
When you process visual data in real time, you're intuiting patterns about the data in front of you, right?
Yes.
In contrast, what I do is entirely brute force conditional. It's like, okay, well, I kind of want to move my horse. Why? I don't know. I was inclined to move my horse, I guess. So now I'm going to go and say, if I move him there, and then he goes there, and then I go there, then he'll go there, though. Okay, no. If I move him there, that's how I do the whole thing, without really ever intuiting those kind of larger strategy stuffs in chess. So I think it's an interesting distinction between NI ignoring and NI third slot. And shows how an example of how NI can be consciously used. You can look at a chessboard and consciously intuit what the preferable among the candidate moves is, right? So, okay. Well, yeah, so I think you're ISFP.
Is that kind of surprising though, based on the because you made a connection with SDAM being SI polar, and like I thought about that as well. So like you thought that those could be related, is what it sounded like in your email.
Yeah, I mean, I would think that most people who get diagnosed as that are SI polar. As far as your SI, you seem kind of habituated to running around your backhand. Like, when I ask SI questions, you don't display the polar tendency of not getting the concept of it. You instead display sort of scramble around kind of thing. Or like, okay, when I ask you for an example, you didn't give me another restatement of a universal rule. You said, I can't think of an example. So I would say that polar would most likely and frequently does, when I ask the question, misunderstand it, and give me another rephrasing of a universal rule, and not recognize the fact that they're not giving me an example. Like when I ask them, what did they have for breakfast? Sometimes they'll go, well, I usually have a bagel. Well, did you have one this morning? Well, usually but this morning did you have one? It's like, that's one of the qualities of polar that I didn't note in you. So I wouldn't call that determinant on the matter, but it is suggestive of that you've got something SI wise that's testing wonky.
Yeah. Well, and that's where I just like wonder how the system applies to or addresses neurodivergency.
Well, I would argue in general that neurodivergency is explained by it much better than assigning various disorders and deficits to things that are within the normal splay of divergency, right? But as far as your SI, I mean, I don't know quite what to make of it. I'd have to, if you wanted me to really fully assess just your SI, I'd have to just really focus on it maybe for a long time, and maybe I'd be able to have some better answers. But all I can say is that's the part of the test that's inconsistent with ISFP. But I didn't get any dramatically polar-esque responses either, so I'm going to just sort of shunt that to the side because I don't see it as definitive.
And then you also believe that any polar?
Oh, I mean, I'm quite convinced you're anypolar. The anypolar textbook anypolar. I ask you to name the invention. You say, here's my name. I say, okay, and another name? Well, that's the best I can come up with. That's like textbook anypolar. So, unlike your SI, which tests weird, your any tests normal, straight up anypolar. So, you're that makes you an ISFP in my book.
And then what is it about the introverted feeling that sticks out to you?
You make me feel nervous because you don't do a lot of regular FE upkeep, which is to say, people with FE that's not ignoring or not polar will generally provide cues either sort of subconsciously, automatically, or consciously. Like, oh, yeah, that's good. Yes, I get what you're saying. Oh, continue, please. Like little, like, I don't know, like, I'm paying attention and you should keep going as you're going because you're making sense. But you're not giving me those cues. And there's a general sort of, I'm recognizing my need to be more concise in my language because I get the sense that you don't want to have buckets of words poured on you.
I'm fine having buckets of words poured onto me. Okay. I'm just trying to make sure that I'm understanding.
Sure. Yeah, I can't exactly say why I could tell you were FI. You just seemed FI to me. You seem fussy.
Fussy. Thank you. No, FI is just it's the weird one because like I think it is the most like personal and subjective function just because the nature of it.
Yeah.
It is very personal to that person, and it's going to look different in every FI user, I think.
Right. Well, I just made this chart here. I'll show it to you here, and you can see what it says about FI. Chrome tab. So, the thing is, FI is an object function by nature, which is to say, you expect the world to present you with situations in which where you make judgments about them, right? So it's like when you're asked to act as a subject with FI, you end up doing harm prevention or defending nonconformity. I didn't finish it yet, but when you're asked to act as an object to FI, well, that's just when shit happens to make you feel good or bad, which is your normal sort of frame of reference. And then as an agent, when asked to use FI, you're asked to know in advance whether you're going to feel okay about this later, for example, and it would value authenticity. So the thing is, as an FI Dom, what that means is you're sort of fluent in FI as a subject, object, and agent. Whereas for me, within the 7th slot, I only experience it really as an object. Things happen to me and I feel good or bad in the real time, and then that's kind of it.
What is this parentheses with the TI in this as subject for FI?
Well, it just shows that in each of these expressions as a subject, object, or agent, it's going to link to one of the things on one of its poles. So it's like, one of its axes. So FI's on an FI-FE axis, it's on an FI-TI axis, and it's on an FI-TE axis. In other words, if you're an FI DOM, you know the placement of FI, TI, TE, and FE. So what that means is FI, when it's acting as a subject, it's expressing FI via its FE mirror. In other words, that's the linkage to FI and FE. When it's defending nonconformity, it's expressing its linkage to TI, which is to say, in that regard, they're both negationary functions. Because they're deliberation functions, their job is to never have any false positives. False negatives, are fine. In other words, I never accept anything. Never accept any bad apple. If I get rid of some good apples, that's fine, but never accept a bad apple is basically the deliberation frame of reference. So what that's saying there is that when you are defending nonconformity, which is one sort of expression of FI that subjects express, then in that regard, it's linking to its deliberation partner, TI. Whereas when you're doing harm prevention, it's linking or resonating or validating under its mirror, FE. That's what that means.
Okay.
Because the other thing is, like those knowledge functions, you'll see at the bottom, they can only express as subjects through the frame of the two action functions that are on their axes. They can't express as subjects, which is to say the most public expression of something, except via that extroverted frame, because agency functions or knowledge functions are the most introverted functions. But yeah, I'll finish this tip. I'll make a video on this later.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So that explains a lot about how and why FI plays out so differently for different people. It's because it depends on where your fluencies are. So it's like, let's say you've gotten in the 6th slot. Well, a 6th slot function, you're supposed to use it as a subject, but FI is not a subject function by nature. So it ends up expressing as like FI6 ends up being people who are very expressive of like enthusiasm about you and or they're concerned about you or whatever else, because that's how you can use FI as a subject. It's like harm prevention / building people up or whatever.
All right. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to stop this video now. Or do you want me to share it with you privately, or are you okay with me publishing?
You can publish it.
All right, cool. Thank you.